In a sec, Dianne. Hello, everyone, and welcome. We've got a fantastic webinar for you this evening. We have Dr. Dianne Regisford talking about evoking belonging, culture, polity, and ARTivism. Dianne focuses on regenerative ARTivism for belonging, racial equality, and cultural transformation rooted in social justice. She's an author of an amazing book she's going to tell you about. But without too much further ado, over to you, Dianne. Thank you very much for coming. They're still beaming into the visiting room. Take it away. Thank you very much, Dianne. Yes.
Thank you, thank you. Greetings to all gathered here, for all those seen and unseen, to our ancestors that have come before us. I call our very presence to this room and this time. I'm thankful for this opportunity to connect our hearts, our minds, our souls to the call for belonging. Mine is a mission of evoking belonging, and I'd like to invite you to, and let's call it an audible libation. If we were in person, I would perform a libation ceremony as I will drop some water to the ground in recognition of the pathways from which we have come, from those who have voyaged before us. And I will invite you to chant with me an Ubuntu chant. It goes like this. I would love to see more faces on the screen as we do this. I invite you to be fully present, pajamas or not. Audible libation. Let's go. It goes like this. Ubuntu.
Ubuntu.
Without you.
Without you.
Without you.
I do not exist.
I do not exist.
Okay. So we'll just have a bit of rhythm in here. Ubuntu.
Ubuntu.
Without you.
Without
I
you.
do not exist. Let's
I
go.
do not exist.
1, 2.
Ubuntu.
Ubuntu.
Without you. Let's get those
Without
bodies
you.
moving. I
Do
not exist.
not
In your
exist.
own rhythm. Let's go. Ubuntu.
Ubuntu. Without you.
Without you. I say, Dr. Yowande, where you there?
I do not
Do
exist.
not
Ubuntu.
exist.
Without
Keep it flowing. Let's
I
go.
do not exist.
Ubuntu.
Without
Without
you.
you,
I say,
I
do not
not exist.
One more time when we close this.
Ubuntu.
Ubuntu.
Without you.
Without you, I do not exist.
Do not
not
exist. I invite you to really
Dianne, I just like.
I invite you to place your feet firmly on whatever ground is beneath you and really sink into this evocation. Ubuntu. Without you, I do not exist. Sensing deeply, if you are called to just turn inwards, allow your eyelids to just lower and gently really sink into this evocation. The promise, the possibility, the reality. Ubuntu. Without you, I do not exist. Really feel into that. Allowing this to permeate every cell in our bodies. I invite you to take a deep inhale and and release. Thank you. Thank you for your participation. I've been invited to share a talk. Anyone who has shared any of these journeys with me will know that it is rare that I will simply talk for 40 minutes or however long the time is. My work calls for all to be included in an equitable way. We do this in various forms, but participation is the invitation for us all. I am a poet, and at this point I would like to share an evocation for all those in whose footprints I find my own. This be an offering. For all those who will search for their footprints in my own, this be a devoted calling. For all those who in this moment shape footprints of sovereignty, this be an expression of poetic solidarity. This is taken from the book Evoking Belonging, Poetics of the Urban Indigene, and I will share more as I am inspired. I invite you on this journey this evening. I would like to call it a journey where we will come together in an inquiry, an evocative inquiry. I like to play with the word to evoke. This is a social sculpture practice. I am a social sculpture practitioner, amongst other things. And we as practitioners dwell at the intersection of the imagination and transformation. And given that we are called here, invited here to gather around the well, we bring all of our knowings, our wisdoms, our ancient traditions, and our very current quotidian practices to this moment. I would invite us to really pause, reflect, slow down, and just presence this moment and the possibilities that will unfold. And to do this, I'd like to invite you into an evoking belonging practice, which is, all of the work is really anchored in the possibilities that, to me, Ubuntu presents. Ubuntu is a Bantu African philosophy. The Bantu peoples you will find across southern, central, and eastern Africa. It's a philosophy and it's a cultural practice. And what I am evoking in my work is that belonging is a co-created cultural practice. We will unfold into that as we go. For now, I'd like to invite you all to once more ground. We will journey into a sensing of what it really means to belong in one of the evoking belonging imaginative voyaging practices. Everyone's at free will to join in or to observe. I would really love to sense into the possibility that this constellation of souls brings at this time. The inquiry question I would like to ask and pose at this time is, what does it feel like to belong? We are here contextualized within a climate emergency. In this time, within this frame, and this invitation of evoking belonging, I invite the inquiry question, what does it feel like to belong. Okay. So I believe we're all muted. If you're not muted, I'd invite you to mute, please. Thank you. Maybe, yes, Phoenix, you could mute everyone except me, evidently. Thank you. All right. So I invite you into the UbuntuSphere. We are journeying into an imaginative space where we are free, where Ubuntu runs through our veins as a deep knowing. And in this, I invite this question: what does it feel like to belong? I invite you to gently straighten your spine, gently, to balance your sit bones, and to place your feet firmly on the ground beneath you. I invite you to turn inwards, and if you are so inspired, allow your eyes to close. And as we do this, we will take some breaths to really connect us to our inner spaces of knowing. In this practice, I invite you to inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth as audibly as you feel inspired to do. As we inhale through the nose, we take the air, the oxygen deep into our belly, and we exhale. I invite you, as we contemplate this question, to inhale. And exhale. Inhale. And exhale. Inhale. And exhale. And holding this posture with our eyes closed, turning inwards, I invite you to an awareness of whatever is emerging for you. As you sense into this question. I invite you to hold the first thing that comes to you. An image, a sensation, symbol, and to just hold what first comes to you as we take another round of 3 breaths. Infusing whatever you have been gifted with in this moment with the breath. I invite you to inhale. And release. Inhale. And exhale. Inhale. And exhale. Holding what you've been gifted from your soul's deepest knowing. We will take one deep inhale to close this practice. I invite you to inhale. And exhale. And as we emerge from this practice, I invite you to hold whatever rests with you in the form that it came. And I invite you to gently open your eyes, covering your eyes if you want to just gently return to the circle. Thank you. I'd like to invite a sharing, a reflection of what came. Just what came to you. Anybody who would be interested to share. Phoenix, may I ask that you just type in the chat as we receive the sharings, and let's see what emerges. Thank you.
Sorry, do you mean type in what people put in?
Yes. Well,
I get repetitive strain injury. There might be someone slightly better for
okay.
that last
All
time.
right.
Last
Or
time.
anybody else?
Anyone else who would be up for doing that? Let me just put it on so we can see everyone's
Thank you.
one. Rather than spotlight to you for there for a second. Move spotlight. If there is someone who could type, that would be, or just short notes of anything.
It's just one word, you know, a phrase. That's it. Yeah.
I've got
Thank
something.
you. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Deborah.
And I've got one.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Go
May
for it,
I,
Deborah.
any sharings? Who would be interested and willing to share what emerged for them?
Was that a hand up for typing, or did you want to say something, Deborah?
Can we speak on this?
Yes, go for it.
Yeah, I think just some clarity and some grounding. That's what I got from this. It was a deep meditation. I must admit, over the last couple of days, I've got some spiritual validation. I'm aware that the ancestors are guiding me correctly for the future.
Beautiful. Thank you.
I'd just like to share with a group. I'm extremely emotional today, I think, because incredible person. She's Rasta Kenny. Rainbow Rasta Kenny passed away. And my best mate for years.
Bless you.
Community centres there on the front line. Change there, welcoming everyone, telling beautiful stories, helping everyone, looking after everyone. And we just passed away. So
bless you.
The ancestors, and big love for Kenny. I want to dedicate this whole session to Kenny, who helped so many community centres for 20, 25 years. Rainbow Kenny, Rasta Kenny, go well, brother. Journey well.
May you journey well.
May I share something with you? About 2 days ago, my chair rattled, and I've had this pumpkin lit throughout the whole of the month, and this ball of spiritual energy came. So I want to just let you know it was Kenny sort of letting me know that he'd passed away. And during the years when people pass away, you have that touch from the ancestors, and you know who it is by where you feel the feeling. And lots of things in the past couple of days have happened, and Kenny reached out to me. So it is true when we say the spirits are with us, and those that love you will find a way to communicate with you.
That's true.
And Kenny was a part of the framework of the alternative life, you know, not the pretend one, the real one. He was one of the soldiers and warriors of light. Never really had anything horrible to say about anyone, didn't gossip or anything like that, to be honest. I never really heard him gossip. And he was a great warrior.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you for sharing, Phoenix. And may Brother Kenny's soul rest in peace as he voyages and transitions to the ancestral realm. Thank you. I invite more sharings of what emerged for you as we were imaginatively voyaging together in response to this question of what it feels like to belong. Thank you.
Can I just say something in relation to Kenny, who I didn't know, but I live in Bristol, and in Bristol we've got a place called Albany Green, and we go there every year to celebrate those we've lost and those we still have. And we always say that those we've lost can easily find us there because we're celebrating their birthdays still, we're celebrating everything still, we're celebrating life still. So those we have lost can easily find us because we're still celebrating them all the time.
Beautiful, thank you. Is this your sharing as a connection to your experience? Or in relation to what?
No, that's just in relation to those we've lost.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. I see Morgan with a hand up. Thank you.
I saw, was it Art Groupie had their hand up?
Our group just spoke. I saw
That was
Morgan.
me.
Oh, sorry.
I'll invite Morgan. I'll invite Morgan next. And then I see Zoom user. If you could please share your name afterwards. Let's hear from Morgan. Thank you.
Well, I'm one of these Buddhists that chant Namyo Horenge Kyo every day. And today I was chanting, and you know, you can't do stuff like that without thinking about the people in Palestine, people who have passed away, especially at this time of year. And when I was doing meditation, it brought it back what I was thinking of this morning. And I was, you know, in this Buddhism, you can chant for those that have gone for 7 generations in the past and 7 generations in the future. What it really means is forever, you know, this way and that way, that time doesn't exist. And I suddenly realized that most people are dead. And I was thinking, oh, here's me chanting for the people who are dead, that we all come into the light. And I thought it's like a wave on the ocean, chanting for the ocean. I had the feeling that, you know, we're all part of the ocean. We're all the ocean. Our individual lives for a minute are like a wave. And there's this little wave, me chanting for the ocean. But why not? And I don't suppose that, well, with Kenny, I don't know him, but he's made the ocean richer.
Thank you. Can I ask us to really be very focused on sharing what came? So is it that you were saying, Morgan, that the chanting that you were doing today is what came for you in the meditation?
It came back, the feeling,
Thank you.
The connection with the connection. Well, the first thing I thought of was the Palestinians, and then that took me back to this moment this morning. So it came back, which I'd forgotten. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that sharing. Thank you. Whose hand was next?
Art Groupie, then Daphne, was it?
Okay. I think Art Group is the legacy hand.
Oh, sorry, I mean,
No,
Dot, I think.
It wasn't a legacy. I'm sorry, I do talk a lot. Phoenix will shut me up if I do. In relation to just now, it's things we've already been talking. I'm already doing a project with there's 2 things here. I'm already doing a project with my friend, and we didn't know what to call it, and we were looking at Ubuntu anyway, and because we wanted to call it I and I, because but then in the end I've given it the working title of accession, which is the measurable and the unmeasurable. But anyway, that this whole meeting is bringing back to mind what we're trying to do in our project, which is very similar actually. But also, we were talking about home the other day, and I just got sad then because the first time I ever found a home, it was somewhere I've never lived, and I sent this also to my friend Andrew, for those who know him, in Bristol, and that's why I stayed there. And it's the most disparate bunch of people I've ever met in my life, and they're my home, and I couldn't even afford to live in the area. But where I come from is not a home to me, and it never was, and I never found one until I went there, and that's what I've been thinking about. Cheers.
And belonging, yes, definitely in the meditations, things come up. So I think Dot, then Daphne, then Gemma are orders on the screen here. And what you thought of the meditation, what did it bring up for you? Evoking belonging, home, belonging space. Dot, then Daphne, over.
Hi, Dianne, nice to see you, and thanks for bringing so much needed peace and tranquility. So I wanted to show this in the background here. This is something that I made with, this is what came up for me was when you were talking about what does it mean to belonging. And it was spending some time with two people today, Helen Edwards and Julian Dorado. And we made this cosmic man or cosmic being inside. It's actually inside a giant fairy ring of mushrooms in Aston's Ayot, which is a nature reserve Victorian rubbish dump. Yeah, and I think, you know, because it's got two facets. One, which is the act of making with other people, and how it was just so nice to have something to focus on, where we were just going off into the undergrowth and finding, you know, plant matter. And I made the thing that's blue in the middle is a origami lotus, and made a balancing thing here, and contributed some other parts to it. And the other two kept going off and coming back, and so I was kind of like holding the circle. And that was one factor. And then the other factor was, you know, just the idea of I guess the connectivity between human beings, nature, and then the universe, which is what I think the Adam Kadmon figure kind of represents in some ways, I suppose. I'm not a big expert in alchemy and Kabbalah and all that stuff, but it's the connectivity, the as above, so below, the perennial philosophy, the fact that whatever's in our hearts, however we're feeling, that's reflected in the natural world around us. And, you know, that we're all part of this really enormous universe, which is beyond our comprehension, but maybe we're also beyond our own comprehension. So that's what I brought up.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Daphne?
During the meditation, the first thing that really came up was around the concept of belonging, was the idea of giving and receiving, and there being an equality of giving and receiving in true belonging with a group or a community of people. There was something else which has sort of slipped my mind, and then I started thinking about the things that get in the way, you know, and thinking about how sort of big institutions, organizations, structures, you know, governments and things like that kind of hinder that process of belonging. That is kind of like a natural thing that we would do, but so that's kind of where I went. I haven't got a specific thing, but those were two things I remember.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Beautiful. Who would like to go next?
I think Gemma's next up there, if you want to raise a hand, folks. Or...
Yeah, I think it was me. I think it was quite practical. It's the same kind of feeling of like warmth and community and acts of service. I think that's my love language, and that's what I kind of like to give out. And yeah, I guess if, like you said, giving and receiving, if everyone did it to each other, the world would be quite a different place.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
May I say as well that even technology gets in the way of human telepathy, because like Phoenix and I, we go back a long way, and so did our friend Kenny, but so did the community as well. And there was a time in humanity, I think just before 2008, where we would telepathically meet up and have meetings like this, whether they're alternative community and the Black community, the Ubuntu Black community, because I'm aware of that as well. And there would be a moment or a center where this kind of conversation would all happen under one roof. So even though technology offers the ability for us to be somewhere, it's kind of like a translation or a different equation of telepathy, which is working now, because there was a time where we would think of something and all of this conversation would happen under one roof. Different rooms, but then conglomerate together in one massive party where different variations of humans' ability to communicate without using the same language would be communicated through the spirit of dance, sign language, facial expressions, or giving and receiving, like an emotional social bartering, like from bracelet to bracelet, to bangles to bangles, to hairstyles, to different lifestyle skills, but all in one. So, but I'm not saying anything negative about technology, because when winter comes, this Zoom is great, But I do remember a time where these kind of conversations would happen telepathically.
Beautiful.
In the alternative world.
Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you. Any other contributions? I'd like to invite all voices to be heard. Deborah, would you like to share?
I had like 3 words come out of it: warmth, strength, and acceptance. So that was it for me, which I found really helpful. It was lovely, the meditation and thinking about it.
Thank you. Thank you. As this is a participatory practice, I create and hold spaces for these kinds of journeys, which can take usually a minimum of 3 hours. This was just a toe dip into the water. Sometimes we take 3 days. It just depends on what the inquiry is. And as a space holder and a steward in this work, it is also important in this practice that those who are holding space are also participating. And so in that spirit, I'll take this opportunity to share what I experienced. My experience was one of a sensation. My hands felt very, very cold, and my feet very, very warm. And as much as I was really channeling the breath into my hands that felt cold, I wanted them to feel as warm as my feet did, because I could feel this connection between the two. That didn't happen. So that was my experience of during the meditation. And so in this practice, the invitation is to share our reflections of what we experienced. So we've heard words, memories were evoked, we've had beautiful contributions, all are beautiful, making, etc. And then we would go back again into circle and deepen this conversation. Due to the constraints of the time we have together, I would invite everyone to hold what emerged for them. But I will also share what typically happens when we are able to come back again in circle. We might do a slow walk by the river, for example, or I've also done it on a very busy street. But a slow walk where we decelerate our pace as a form of walking meditation to process on the inside what is happening, with a real invitation to develop our capacities to observe when we are thinking and to choose sensing. So the evoking belonging work takes us into working with our inner materials, what we call our inner materials. And these are our attitudes, our beliefs, and our values. And I'm interested to bring this work to the climate justice space, because one of the questions that I am often asked is, why is it that we don't see many Black people in these spaces? What will it take to make our climate justice solidarity more inclusive?
I have to say, in the alternative world, spiritually it was inclusive, and I never really realized until I got back to the city that I was probably the only Black girl there. But when you're in that environment, because we're all sharing the same common goal, we never saw color. And I have to admit, there was a moment where there was two women, one was English and I myself Black, and we had mixed race children, but we were just mothers. And for a long time, we were just mothers. You had Phoenix, our brethren, Kenny, lots of other men, and we were just mothers. And it was only until we saw each other's children's father, there was this split notion, oh, who's Black, who's white? And it was weird because we'd looked at each other all this time as just women with children. So, and when I get into the city, because that whole alternative climate change and everything was my way of life from a young child. It's about alternative camping. When you camp, Black people don't camp. And that's what, if you're gonna, because if you're in Africa, the woman will still be outside and she'll be practically practical. And what it is with Black people is when they're in England or outside of Africa or Jamaica or whatever, let's say hot tropical land where it's nature, they don't realize that you can be that way here. In England, or let's say we're in England now, I was in at a fairy festival, and there was an English woman and she had a big massive pot and she's cooking for everybody. And at a split second, she reminded me of an African woman because she had the same big pot in her hand, doing the same everything. So, and it's just a case of, I think if you was to ask me now, I'm going to ask you, because as someone who I've raised my children on the field with England, you know, and I'm Black, but I'm never really noticing I'm Black until I'm in the city, and city people are like, you're either odd or you're out there or you're a bit more knowledgeable. I would say it's just down to camping and just knowing that you're not going to die if you sleep outside, you know. And Joshua said to Bear Grylls, the closest he got to sleeping outside was having his bedroom window open. So, you know, so it is a case of something as simple as that. But I am aware that there is more, like intellectually, practical, professionally, awareness, everyday awareness, that there is more to be done, but there has to be an understanding for myself and Kenny that the unity part of it has already been done. Do you understand? We've already established that there is no racism. If you cut your foot or you've got an itch, you just probably need some oil, the correct oil. It's not racist if you drop and someone says, oh, get on with it. Do you know what I mean? They would say it to anyone. So that's the only sort of thing. And just to get with the fact that we're all practical. You know, in England, we have our same indigenous English recycle way, the same way they do in other places. And I'm aware of it, and I'm quite protective of it, because there are some people that has never seen English people camp. and they don't understand that they're not cavemen, they're camping. But if we, you know, it's the same with, you know, when you look likewise and you see indigenous people in other areas of the world, they're not unabundant, they're abundant, you know. But that's my take on it.
Nice. I think I just want to bung a couple of bits in there. You know, the meditation made me feel calm and peaceful. I've had a very emotional day. We used to do with these 30 years of community centres was try and create belonging. You know, we welcomed, we were a rainbow community, rainbow centres. The first one was called One World Rainbow Centre. You could say over 35 years of setting up these centres and writing the Climate Emergency Centre handbook, the Rainbow Centre was the seed of the Climate Emergency Centres. There's now 28 of them around the country. And, you know, between me, Kenny, Sherilyn, lots of people, it was a real rainbow mix. We ran inner city London, you know, centres. And for the most dispossessed and the most disadvantaged people, it was a mix of all different races, cultures, religions, beliefs, from Rastas to punks to Hindus to Buddhists to atheists to anarchists to, you know, people from the council. We had MPs come and visit, all sorts. And we welcomed everybody. We hugged everybody come in and we give them, you know, a welcome and tried to make them feel part of it and some sense of belonging. I mean, we were a nomadic community as well. So we squatted for the first 25 years. So we moved from one place to another, and people came and joined you who'd been at the previous 3 or 4, 5 centres or carried on, like with Kenny, 15 years, 20 years through many different centres. And, you know, we'd welcome everyone who came to the different spaces. And we need to do that. We need to create belonging. We need to create space. We create a tribe wherever we go of all cultures and all colours who help each other. And we've got to do that for the environment, for the future. The Rainbow Tribe is all about all races and all cultures getting together to repair the future. So, you know, let's keep doing that. Let's keep creating the belonging spaces and helping each other. Thanks, Dianne. Over.
Phoenix, thank you. I would like to share a little with those reflections and for all that has been shared in terms of what emerged through the meditation. And please, if there's anybody who still wants to share, I would invite that in. Just please raise your hand, your Zoom hand. Evoking belonging and the pillars or the axes of culture, polity, and ARTivism. So as social sculpture practitioners, we are working in an expanded field of artistic practice. We see ourselves and every human being as artists. Joseph Beuys, who is typically referenced as the father of social sculpture, who was one of the first, I think, Green Party founders in Germany, was key in presenting this idea that every human being is an artist. And the question that a lot of us as practitioners are working with is, I come from an international development field, and I would use inverted commas because there are lots of questions we need to ask even around that terminology and where that emerges from, but that's another discussion for another day. I was practicing, living in South Africa, working across the African continent, and working with a variety of governments, civil society, non-governmental agencies as well, organizations, and exploring how we can translate policy, cultural policy, art and culture departments for the people. This was typically the work I would be doing. And when I came across social sculpture and understood this question or this proposition, what I would call in my work an evocation, that every human being is an artist, every part of me just opened up. It literally exploded. I will never forget that moment. When I realized that we could find ways, equitable ways, to work in community, no matter what language was being spoken, where we could begin to dissolve the paradigm of a UN agency swooping in with aid or with ideas, let's just say ideas around how we can address certain social problems, having worked in such spaces, I often left feeling that we had done more harm. We came with very good intention, but we did more harm than good, if that is a paradigm in which we operate in. Harm because we stirred up the possibility for change. And as long as the budgets were there, we were able to continue that work. But once the money ran out, I was often left asking myself, what has really changed? And so social change and the distinction between change and transformation became a very deep inquiry question for me, because change, we can shift things, but to effect transformation, for me, is a much longer, deeper engagement. And so I came to the field of social sculpture, exploring the African Caribbean diaspora knowings and realities that we're dealing with. So as Vanessa has just shared, she's given us a very interesting perspective on the rainbow community and culture that Phoenix then also followed up and shared with us. My focus on African Caribbean diaspora communities links back to those indigenous knowings and wisdoms. And I am proposing through this work and continued practice that our concept and idea of what is indigenous, who is indigenous in these times. I speak to you and I identify as a Black woman of African heritage, Caribbean parentage, who has worked in many, many different spaces, but identifying very clearly with my cultural heritage. And when I sit in spaces and we speak about a return to the indigenous, let's go back to the indigenous and learn, I find myself asking, well, who is indigenous to me? I am first generation. I was born in Oxford. I grew up in Central Africa. We moved around as a family, but my children are back here now with me in Oxford. My foreparents and my forebearers are very present because this is part of my work. It's intergenerational work. But those indigenous practices are coming through the work that I do with them, but it's added to their own experiences of their current reality. And so what I've come to understand and what I'm proposing here is that we are all here as first generation descendants of, let's say, for example, the Windrush generation. We are all navigating the systems and processes that govern our lives. If we want to look at the governance systems, we are all navigating how to be bold and to assert our cultural presencing with other cultures that we are integrating with. I ask questions around the notion of the rainbow because, and I feel it's something that we need to interrogate, because I feel that if we're to have open and honest and transparent conversations around the possibility that the rainbow invitation invites, we cannot do this without looking at race and equity, looking at the constructs that exist to disproportionately affect African Caribbean diaspora communities and other communities that are underserved and equity deserving. Those are the words I choose to use. The equity question for me in the climate emergency sphere is something that I interrogate through the UbuntuSphere. You will recall, those who were with us at the beginning, we chanted, Ubuntu, without you, I do not exist. So I will say very clearly that, yes, I can see the rainbow. And I remember when I was based in South Africa, Nelson Mandela and, the first government that came in after apartheid was dismantled, the first democratic government, founded a constitution, what was regarded at the time as the world's most progressive constitution, on Ubuntu, on our indigenous knowings. And what I would call all of us to consider is to slow down the desire and the impulse for all of us to be seen in the rainbow. I'll stay with this rainbow analogy, seeing as it has emerged here. And in recognition of all the fantastic work that is going on that none of us could actually fully appreciate. You know, I think there is some work to be done around collating those experiences, Phoenix, for example, such as that you shared, Vanessa, that you shared, you know, into some documentation so that we can look back, our children can look back and say, there is a trajectory. We're not all starting everything from the beginning again, but it is not yet time for me, in my experience of the world and with the communities that I exist to serve, it is not yet time for us to be celebrating a rainbow reality because of those systems that we are all here, the systemic inequities that are affecting the communities that I am here to serve. And so I am in this evocation and this enlivenment of the cultural practice of Ubuntu. I am also inviting a very delicate holding of those realities. And that is something that I work with on a daily basis within my own personal journey, because a lot of this is autoethnographic work. It is about how we bring ourselves to these questions. This is part of what I do with the work that I do. And it's also about ensuring that no one is left behind. And so this question of why we don't see so many Black people in the climate justice space is one that I am devoted to exploring, journeying with, and to, sorry, Vanessa, I'll bring you in shortly.
Yes.
And to documenting. And so in terms of Phoenix, I know we're coming to the top of the hour. I would just like to, Phoenix, would you be able to share that that one image that I shared with you earlier, that Dot shared with you earlier?
Yep, just give me a minute just to make sure it's there. You chat for a minute and I'll have it,
Yes.
and I can share my screen.
I would just like to share a little bit about the work that the offering that I'm sharing from next month onwards, literally in 2 days' time onwards. And it's an invitation really to a speaker series that I'd like to bring to organizations, to community groups, to institutions, to companies, to your networks, where we look at Ubuntu, culture and belonging. I will close at least this part with saying that the evoking belonging work that is proposing and embodying belonging as a co-created cultural practice, revolving on this axis of Ubuntu, and really being very, very committed to defining what culture looks like for us. I define culture as our ways of seeing, our ways of being, and our ways of doing. And this co-created culture invites a continuum of give and receive. What were the words that we heard earlier? Giving and receiving. We heard about connectivity. We also heard about death. Death. We are in a climate emergency. We are also in a living systems sphere. And so death is a very necessary part of what needs to be released for us to be reborn again, for us to transition. Thank you, Phoenix. And to re-emerge in new form. And so I leave these evocations with you for continued
picture of it.
unfolding. Sorry?
I'm just taking a picture of it.
We will share this also on the platforms with Phoenix and Dot. This is a speaker series that I launched in Black History Season. We know that Black history is every day for all of us, as are other histories. So I call it a season. It's a speaker series, and I'm looking here at Ubuntu culture and belonging. And this is an invitation to explore with your community groups what Ubuntu culture and belonging could really look and feel like in your work. And I would invite any inquiries. There is a number there that you can call me on. I'm on LinkedIn. If you just type in Evoking Belonging, you'll also get it. But I'd like to just close my part of this evening by saying thank you. Thank you for your audience. Thank you for your hearts. Thank you for your offerings and your willingness to participate in this journey. Ubuntu, without you, I truly do not exist. Thank you, Phoenix.
Without you, Ubuntu, without you, I truly do not exist. Blessings, Dianne. Thank you so much, I think, today, really, for personally things we've been going through with Kenny. That's a deep sharing. Thank you very much. Kenny would have resonated with a lot of that. And there's some crews we met at the festivals this year, Ubuntu Village, and some other groups I'd like to link you up with. If people want to put a few words in the chat about what they thought about tonight, and please do get in touch with Dianne and you know, share anything you can, and share her great work so that many more groups can appreciate the work she's doing. We need to, you know, work on all cultures of how we work together and cooperate for a just social future for everyone from whatever walk of life and cultures. So thank you very much, Dianne. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming.
Thank you. I would love to hear some reflections. If we do have a few moments, I would love to hear some reflections from anybody.
If you want to hear, we can roll on for another 10 minutes if people want. I can stop the recording shortly.
Well,
People want to make a few feedbacks, go for it, guys. I might stop the recording, and then if you want to do, you know, just carry on chatting, that's fine.
Do you not feel the feedback is important to record?
Okay, keep going with it. Okay, we'll keep going with it for now. That's good. Okay, carry on, folks. Go on, take it away. Over.
Yeah, Dr. Dianne, I appreciate you being interested in that as well. And I, as a British person, I'm British. I'm aware that I've got dark skin and complexion and that, but I just purely use it for vanity oils and how to keep my skin not looking crusty, if you know what I mean, on the vanity side, you know. Yeah. But I think if you wanted to raise awareness, it's always nice if others can recognise that. I think sometimes that Britain does have an indigenous culture as well, and some people, they're quick to call it other names other than the indigenous culture, because a lot of when people talk about Ubuntu and Orishas and Oshons and Obatala and all of that, they don't realise it's the same thing as the goddesses and the green man that we have here. So it is a case of sharing salts and seasoning and puts and going, oh, that's wonderful. And that's how I would feel it would work, as in a nice rainbow as well as the nice rainbow. Does that make sense? I would say if we couldn't understand any language, practical dance moves will get the message across, just as well as food, eating, sharing, and within the nomadic, because I truly believe that the lifestyle that we had was one of Britain's last nomadic lifestyles and awareness out of choice and out of a way of life. It wasn't forced upon us. We all came together like Britain's last way of life, but it's going to continue down to the next generation, continuing the work that we've instilled in them through the avenues that they have in the 21st century. But also I understand your calling, like, why are there no black? Because when we look at the climate protests, there are a load of English people there, but there are no solid black girls there. You know, you find them everywhere around, but are they not concerned? Are they less concerned? So maybe it would be a case of educating them, like getting a way to put that through to the curriculum, that actually those trainers you're wearing, that you've got to break it down to them on the practicalities of that. Because I homeschooled my children, so when my family take them to Jamaica, they'll be able to cope out there. And I thought, there's no way I could send them to school, you know, that with my lifestyle and my education, I just couldn't do that. It was easier for me to homeschool my children. So, and that gave them a worldly view. And I'm not being wicked to the rest of the women out there, but I do see the difference between my children and state educated children. So if you wanted to sort of get black people in there, you're going to have to probably, I wouldn't say lower your standards, but ask them to step up and make a ladder and reach the level that you're at, that where, let's say, Phoenix's daughter and our children are at, because they're making sensible decisions, whereas others aren't. But if you look at the ratio, how can 2 people make good decisions and 98 don't, you know?
Right. Thank you for that,
If
Vanessa.
that works, I hope that helps.
Thank you. Well, I think it's an inquiry for all of us, and for all of us in our spaces and our spheres to take deeper, to deepen, and to find ways to share the insights that we gain, the sensings that emerge, and this is why that connectivity is really important. But thank you for your contribution. I'd love to hear as many voices as possible, so I'd like to invite us to just be really mindful and conscious of our time, our 10 minutes, and to be as concise as possible with our offerings. I see 2 hands. I see
Dr. Yewande had her hand up, I think.
Yewande as well. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. I'll try and make this very concise. It's a really beautiful offering. And what I wanted to just say that sometimes doing something like this in the evening brings so many other things that have happened over the week that we haven't had time to think about. And just having that moment of clarity, but also having other things feeding in. So what you said about Rasta Kenny really sat with me very powerfully, because I actually connected with another Rasta today because he sent me a video. And in our conversation, it just dawned on me the role that Rasta men have played in the education of young Black men. And that did not sit, it did not occur to me till I had that conversation. And ending it up with Rasta Kenny that I didn't know, there's something in the air about us even just acknowledging the work that people that are doing before us, doing now, and the work that people like Ras Kenny has done. So if I hadn't come to this, all that would not have aligned. That's what I wanted to quickly say, and we can reformulate it for it to be more succinct in people's minds. But thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this.
Thank you for your participation. Thank you. I see Art Groupie.
I was only going to say something really quick, and it was about being dead as well. And we were talking about this the other day as well, amongst the things I just mentioned. And that was, there's a terrible thing at the moment. I've got a paper, it's called The Global Cry of Loneliness. And I was saying, I wouldn't mind if I was dead or if I lived for a short amount of time. I wouldn't, if my granddaughter, where we are in a climate emergency, if my granddaughter was to die, or my daughter, or myself, the one thing I would ask is that we die without loneliness. Then I wouldn't mind whatever time of day it was.
Bless you. Thank you so much.
I just want to share something from the, or anyone who hasn't spoken, please speak up, because some of us speak more. Gavin, I know, maybe hasn't spoken, might want to share, but do by all means jump in or stick your hand up, guys. Lion and them, some of the Rastas who used to come to the Rainbow Centre, when we invited them to come to protest, would say, what you don't realise, Fee, is like, you go to a protest as a white person, and that's your day you're going protesting, but like, every single day of our life is a protest. We go out on the streets, the police pick on us. If we go to a protest, we are like 1 or 2 or 3 black faces in a sea of hundreds of white faces, and the police clock us straight away, and they come for us and they pick on us. So culturally, we have to understand it's much different for black people to go to a protest than it is for white people to go to a protest. You're much more in, you know, in focus and things. And, you know, how we learn from each other is we have to hear the stories of our different cultures. And running 30 years of talking circles where you'd pass us talking stick round and you would hear all these different stories from different ages, different cultures, different genders. You know, one sticks out in my mind. We had one in Parliament Square, and we had a Afghan guy whose family, it was against the war. We occupied Parliament Square, Democracy Village, and we had an Afghan guy who'd lost family in the Afghan war, and we had a Marine who'd been in the Afghan war, and they started arguing and nearly had a punch up, and then we got them calmed down and they listened, and in the end they were both crying their eyes out and they both hugged each other, because we have to appreciate the different stories that we have and the different cultures we come from and the cultural programming we get and things. And working in circles, that's taught me a lot over a lot of years. Anyone who hasn't spoken,
Sorry. I know I've spoken, but can I directly just reply to that very, very quickly, Phoenix? Is that everyone globally, so everyone, well, what we can do, okay, so we're talking about black people here, but we are working with everybody in East Africa, in Nigeria. We can amplify their voice. They're much more at risk than us here. And they are empowering themselves to reimagine their paradigm there, because you're not going to get rid of oil in Nigeria, 86% of the country's economy. What we can do is amplify their stories, though, here. That's what I was going to say. Bye.
Thank you for the work you're doing with Friday and the Goni people. Big up Ken Saro-Wiwa. Ladies and gentlemen, final parting comments. Gavin, anyone else who hasn't spoken, anyone who wants to share? And then I think anyone else who wants to share anything, and then we'll come back to Dianne. So, Gavin, lovely to hear.
Since you called on me, I will say something. And what I like about this is that love, okay, the fact that that fact of oneness, and it's something that I've been longing for. We long for belonging. How can we achieve that? How can we all be heard? Something that I've been reading recently is by David Bohm, who wrote a book called On Dialogue. And he was basically saying that we have to change the way that we think, especially when we're looking at something like the environment. Because if we pursue the old ways of thinking, we think that we can solve everything on a technological basis. And so we have to transform ourselves, not just transform our methodology, but transform how we relate to ourselves and also to each other and also to Gaia. And I think that there needs to be more of that going into one's soul. Meditation, perhaps, at the beginning of a gathering, and meditation towards the end. So I'm going to leave it there, because it's something that I think we're moving towards, something that's very necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gavin.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, everyone, for all your wise words, all your wisdom, for bringing, you know, your knowledge here. It takes everyone to make a circle, everyone to make community, everyone to make the tribe, come together, all races, all cultures, all colours, all creeds. We are one people, one planet. Big up, Rambo Kenny. Over to Dianne for final words. Bless up. Thank you for bringing the belonging.
Thank you so much. This is always it's always so enriching and enlivening for me to sit in circle in this way. I'd like to close with a short poem. The one I had chosen was longer, but I see we're over time. I will share The Heartful Feast. Home, the visioning, the yearning, the sensory, warm, tender fibers weaving spaces within, weaving tendrils evocative, weaving, emoting deep yearning. Said he, home be a movable feast. Said she, says me, come, make we sata, get ready for the making, get ready for the unfolding, get ready for the belly aching, gut-wrenching soliloquies that have been so long lost in the midst of mystically moving spirit sentinels. They be keeping watch at fortune's golden gates. They hold promise. They hold serenade songs to life better lived. Mystical, you, home, that movable feast keeps me rolling, searching for footholds, for place, for anchoring, for my resting space. Home, you mystical being, I conjure you deep within. I cosset and covet you, I so restless, I, yes, so breathless, yes, I so patiently wait. For the homecoming, I be ever preparing. For your dwelling, I be, oh yes, ready. I be ready for what I say, ready for the feasting. And together I invite we to join in. We be evoking belonging, evoking belonging. We be evoking belonging. Ashe.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bless up. Thank you so much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to stop the recording there. You're welcome to beam off for tea or to stay around and chat for a bit.